Welcome to CB8 Speaks, television show of Manhattan Community Board 8. My name is David Liston, and I am so pleased and privileged to host this episode of CB8 Speaks. CB8 Speaks, for those of you new to our show, is the show of Community Board 8. It's our opportunity to shine a light on, to focus on the issues and the people that matter on the Upper East Side and Roosevelt Island, the areas that our district represents. Tonight, our very special guest is Alida Camp. Alida is the chair of Community Board 8. She was elected to the position effective January 1st of this year. She's 8 months into this incredible service to the city and to the community and to our board. And I am so grateful to her for coming on the show. Welcome, Alida.
Thank you. I'm so pleased to be here and to be interviewed by you. Thank you.
I'm so pleased to be here with you and to interview you.
Thank you.
I myself was a chair of Community Board 8, as you know, and I think no one better than a former chair appreciates and respects the commitment and the investment you put into this position.
I know, because you know what kind of commitment it is.
I do. Let me ask you this. I think most of our viewers should know who you are. You should need no introduction. I think if anyone's ever been to a Community Board 8 meeting this year, they will have seen you up front, running those meetings, keeping things moving, giving people the chance to be heard, giving attention to the issues that matter to our community. Having said that, why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about yourself? You know, where are you from? Tell us about your work experience, your life experience.
Okay. I grew up in the Bronx, so I'm really a New Yorker. In fact, I went to college upstate, and after 3.5 years upstate, I couldn't wait to come back to a city. When I applied to law school, I only looked at schools in urban environments. I am really a New Yorker. I lived in Michigan, where I taught at a university, and then Los Angeles, where I worked in the film business for Roger Corman. Those of you who know low-budget filmmaking, I produced 7 movies for him. And then finally, I was able to get my husband to come back here, and I've been living in New York now for 20 years. It's almost like being on vacation. There is so much to do and so much that's interesting and such passionate people in the city. I have been doing mediation and arbitration for the last, quite a number of years, and I find that those skills are helpful pretty much everywhere. So I enjoy working with people and listening to people and finding areas in which people with disparate views and antagonistic positions can find common ground.
What about your past experience, life experience, work experience, experience as a New Yorker, has prepared you for the position of chair?
As a mediator and an arbitrator, I listen to people, and I think that's really important, to listen to board members, to listen to the public, to listen to the city, to find common ground. As a child, I grew up around our dinner table. We had very vocal and passionate arguments about politics and events going on, and so that led me to be an involved, committed person who cares about the city. I grew up here. Coming into Manhattan was such a treat that there's something about New York that's in my blood, and wanting to make it a better city and work for everyone who lives here to keep its vitality, its diversity, its interests to its neighborhoods I've used the word passion a lot, but I guess is a passion and a commitment of mine. So that has brought me to want to do right for New York, want to make the community better, want to keep people committed, interested, to have the city be a place where they have a home. It shouldn't only be about wealthy people. It shouldn't only be about white-collar people. It should be a city for everybody, with different occupations, different income levels, different education levels, racial, religious, ethnic backgrounds, sexual orientation. That's what makes a city a city. It really should be and is and has been a melting pot. So that's where my passion and commitment come from. And then I think the mediation skills and the arbitration skills that I've acquired from working with disparate people and points of view and types of disputes has really led me to be able to listen, to find areas of interest between different groups, to try and work towards getting agreements on whatever points there are of difference. And there are plenty, as I'm sure you remember.
Yeah, I do. And how would you describe what a board chair's duties are, day to day, week to week?
they're dealing with whatever issues board members have. Sometimes there are instances where co-chairs of committees are having some friction, where the city is not being responsive, where organizations are not necessarily being responsive, so it requires writing letters, sometimes testifying. I've gone down to the Landmarks Commission when there were proposals to amend their rules to testify. I went down to testify before the mayor's Charter Commission Review Board on issues that are important to the community board and important to the community. That was just this week. So, and working with committees to make sure that they are effectively and energetically pursuing the topics that they have, to possibly suggest other topics to them, to try and get issues before the board that need to be, to help the public get concerns of theirs resolved, or at least find a direction in which they could go with their concerns. The community board needs to be responsive to the public, needs to address its concerns, and the community at large. So, and to be able to work with the city, by the city charter, we're an advisory group. So to be able to have the city treat us as an advisory group and respond to our concerns and our interests is an important part of the job, I think.
What have you found most gratifying and enjoyable about the job on the one hand, and what have you found most challenging so far in these 8 months?
For me, what's gratifying has been working with everyone on the board, listening to the public, working with the city, seeing what issues there are, how the city functions, how to try and get things done. I think all of that, to just dive into basically the city government, because community boards are a city agency, has been very fascinating to hear the issues, the applicants, from landmarks to transportation, to see how certain issues which you think may not be contentious actually are, and to try and basically come up with ways in which the community interests are satisfied. What's challenging has been to have the city be responsive to the community board, to treat us in our appropriate capacity as advisory, to be more responsive on certain issues that really matter, such as the development that has been unchecked on 3rd, 2nd, 1st, and York Avenues, and to have the procedures of the board, which are there for a reason to matter to applicants. So for instance, all the committees, that's where the bulk of the work is done. There are either people come in with issues, or the committees take up certain issues, and then they pass a resolution. The resolution goes before the full board for a vote. At times, applicants come in wanting to change what's being presented to the full board from what has been at the committee level, and that's frustrating because committees have the expertise and they have the time to deal with certain issues. So it's being cognizant of the procedures and why the procedures were established. And I'm not one of form over substance, but in these instances, form is substance, and it's important to recognize that committees have the ability to really handle the issues in a deeper capacity than the full board does. We have such busy agendas when the full board meets once a month.
Anyone who's ever been to a community board meeting knows that they can become contentious. People feel strongly about the issues of the day. And Community Board 8 is no exception.
Not at all.
How do you deal with the challenge of maintaining civility, having a constructive dialogue? How do you deal with that as chair? And how has being someone with your experience as a mediator helped?
Again, being a mediator has taught me to really listen to people and to have them understand that their story is being heard by other people, by their adversaries, by a neutral person. So there's recognizing that there are different points of view and giving respect to all the points of view, and encouraging board members and the public to treat each other that way as well. There have been occasional outbursts from the public, so reminding them that civility really matters, that they will not be heard if they don't follow those procedures of raising their hands and being recognized. And just basically encouraging a level of respect and of listening to each other, because points of view can be persuasive. I most recently saw that in the last full board meeting where we were discussing an applicant and a landmark application, and there were very oppositional points of view. A new resolution had been suggested at the board meeting. But what people said, both in support of the new resolution and in opposition to that resolution for various reasons, I think influenced the way board members viewed it. And so that was very gratifying that people were listening to each other and treating each other in a way that allowed a resolution to be passed without it, and to have everyone respect that resolution.
I think this has been an exciting time for our board to have you as our chair, to have you bring your mediation experience and all your other talents and skills
Well, thank you.
To the job. And thankfully, you don't do it alone. You have a staff. And I think for the sake of our viewers who may not be really familiar with this, can you sort of explain how we're all volunteers, but we also have a paid staff? Can you tell us about the role of paid staff, and particularly the district manager in the work of the board?
We do. We have a new district manager and a new assistant district manager and a community associate. The two assistant district manager and community associate will be starting. We have new people starting in August, and we're very excited about them. And the district manager is someone who comes from working in Dan Garodnick, who was one of the former city council members for our community. And when we were hiring him, there was a search committee that consisted of the former chairs and the officers of the community board, the vice chairs, and me. And we wanted it to be clear to the new district manager that we saw it as not being purely administrative, but as reaching out to the community, trying to engage the community, to interact with the community in a different way, to be more forward-facing, public-facing, so that people would engage with the community board, because we're only as good as the public sees us. And we felt that it was really important for the district manager to be out there working with the public. So the city will communicate with us. We'll talk about hearings. We'll ask for our opinion on things. And Will, who's our district manager, Will Brightbill, communicates with either committee chairs if a landmarks application or a liquor license application comes in, or transportation issues, or with me, and we talk about how best to engage with the city, how to reach out to the public. We've developed a new section for the website called Take Action that will encourage the public to make phone calls or write letters when there is a hot, urgent topic that needs public support. And we have 2 new high school members on the community board. So there's a great wealth of age diversity and other backgrounds on the community board, and all of that is for the public interest and to help the public achieve its interests.
I think some people have a misimpression of the district that we represent. I think they think of it as, Park Avenue.
Park Avenue, Fifth Avenue.
Right, and of course that is part of our district and an important part. But as you and I were chatting right before the show started, there's more to the district than that. Can you sort of talk a little bit about the flavor, the variety of the people we represent? It's
a tremendously diverse district. It goes from 59th to 96th Street, from the park to the river, and includes Roosevelt Island. We have NYCHA housing, which we're concerned about maintaining affordable housing, all the way to the penthouses on Park Avenue and Fifth Avenue and their lovely, gorgeous views. There are walk-ups in former tenement buildings with affordable housing, to walk-ups that are market rate housing. We have historic districts, landmark buildings, I think 129 landmark buildings, if my memory serves me right, all the way up to new high-rises and townhouses along the East River that are historic, and Roosevelt Island, which was intended, I believe, as a middle-class community. So there are all kinds of housing stock. We have excellent public schools, excellent private schools. We have cultural institutions, museums, temples, and churches. We have the river and the park for recreation, for walks, for solitude, for nature, which is really important. We have cultural opportunities in terms of bigger museums such as the Met, and smaller museums such as the Frick, and famous architectural landmarks such as the Guggenheim. And we have Central Park Zoo, if you consider any part of Central Park to be within our district. So it's really important to realize that Community Board 8 has a diversity of places to relax, such as restaurants and shops for mom and pop, to historic businesses, to cutting edge, to an international array up Madison Avenue. So yes, it expands from very wealthy people to people who don't have those kinds of resources, but we try and make sure that everyone is counted, and everyone does count, and that the community board represents everyone fairly. That's been an important goal of mine. So I've wanted to introduce more transparency rules into the community board. I've encouraged, actually, in terms of mediation, some social time together, because what I found when I was, well, let's say running to become chair and talk to every member of the community board, how committed people are and how fascinating their backgrounds are.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy talking to every single person, and I realize that if people talk to each other, with getting to know everyone comes a better level of civility and respect. People are no longer a facade of taking a particular position or having a particular point of view, but they become three-dimensional. And if you like them, they can be more respect and more finding that common ground. So I've wanted to do that as well.
We all have good intentions on our board. I think everyone speaks from sincerity. And I think if you can get people to talk with each other, that often makes things work out.
It makes a difference. I'll just tell you one quick mediation story, which was I had one between architects. They were not speaking to each other when they came into the room. At the end of it, we were meeting for some reason in a club, and when I went to find them as the lawyers were writing the settlement agreement, they were sharing a bottle of wine in the bar. So there you go. Sometimes just talking to each other, getting rid of the past antagonisms and finding that common interest or a way to work together to satisfy. It doesn't have to be the same interest, but if you could work something out that satisfies various interests, there can be a good relationship and things are made better. And that's why I'm so interested in trying to work with the city, because we have oppositional points of view in terms of, for instance, the height limit. CB8 has a resolution asking for a cap on certain buildings. We want to see more affordable housing. And if we could sit down with the city, with some builders maybe, and work out solutions for small business to help keep small businesses in place, to help keep people in their residences rather than being forced to move, to enable people to move into the community, for the community to grow. All of those are reasons or areas that benefit the city. And we want to be able to work with the city and come to agreements that make sense, that really make sense.
How does someone get involved with the community board? If someone sitting here now is thinking, that sounds really great, I want to be a part of that, what would you say to them?
Manhattan has such a high number of people who are interested in and motivated to be on community boards that it's really terrific. Through the Charter Review Commission process, I've heard about some of the other boroughs, and I have to say Manhattan is outstanding. There are applications that come out, I think, in January. So one would apply, right, fill out the application, and then I think, and the determinations are made by the borough president in most instances and by the city council people and city council members, that is, and there are interviews, so to be able to show commitments to New York, either volunteer or work, a tie to the community. You have to either live or have a business or a profession in the community so that there's a tie, and then apply. But in the meantime, people could be public members on committees. You could show up to a committee that appeals to you, whether it's landmarks or housing or transportation. Look on the website at all the different committees, show up for some meetings, talk to the chairs. We have a limit of 2 public members, but many committees don't have 2. And you could join as a public member or just come to the board meetings. You could come to committee meetings, you could come to full board meetings. There's a public session so that people can express their concerns or ask questions or complain about a business or something that's wrong with a street. And that's a way for people to engage.
You mentioned committees, and I think a new committee or two. As chair, one of your many responsibilities is to create committees, perhaps even discontinue committees when there's no longer a reason to have them, to suggest items or request certain items be included on the agenda. Can you tell us about any new committees that you've created and why you've created them? And then talk a little bit about existing committees and the direction that they're going in under your leadership.
Thank you. In addition to the Charter Review Committee, which we just established, the Bylaws Committee is going to be reinvigorated because the borough president would like more consistency of bylaws among the various community boards in Manhattan. I started a Women and Families Committee. It's temporarily on hiatus, but there are issues that confront women and families that are unique to women. For instance, they had a forum on gender pay equity. That's an issue that is more certainly for women than it is for men because women are struggling to catch up. I consolidated the Waterfront and Parks Committee because they seem to be redundant, and the Parks Committee, who is being co-chaired by one of the chairs of the waterfront or the chair of the waterfront committee, because waterfront and parks, their borders were fuzzy and merging, and I didn't want any territorial disputes. So it seems the Parks Committee covers the Esplanade and the parks near the water, as well as parks that are a little bit further away from the water. I see committees as really being proactive. I've encouraged the Housing Committee, for instance, to meet on a more regular basis because we are so concerned about affordable housing and the loss of affordable housing in the community, how to bolster it, how to make sure that we're not losing more units. And in order to be effective, committees need to meet regularly. I've encouraged the Zoning Committee to meet more frequently, the Small Business Committee, because the Upper East Side, as well as most areas of the city, have really saw a loss in small mom and pop businesses, and we want to be able to stop that and encourage businesses to stay and to figure out why they're leaving. Is it the internet? Is it foot traffic? Is it high rent? And to try to intervene with potential solutions that, again, work for landlords, work for the community, work for the mom and pops. It's the mom and pops that give a neighborhood a character. So there are wonderful stores. I love to go window shopping on Madison Avenue, but I also love to go window shopping on Lexington, on 2nd, on York, and just see the different businesses that are there and to try and encourage their support because they give the neighborhood character. They satisfy the needs of community residents and businesses. We don't want to see all the shoe stores lost. We don't want to see all the grocery stores, all the bodegas that form an important part of the community, to see them lost. We want to have and support as many small businesses, small cultural organizations, galleries, whatever is interesting, brings vitality, brings life, and satisfies the needs of the community, and to help them stay in the community and be profitable.
The Borough Board, you represent the Community Board as our chair at the Borough Board. Can you tell our viewers just generally what that is, what that means, and what are a couple of issues that are borough-wide that you're a part of the dialogue about?
Well, the Borough Board, it consists of all of the chairs of the community boards in Manhattan. We meet at the Borough President's office, and she chairs that meeting, and it meets monthly. So we've had different people come and speak about different initiatives. One was, I don't remember the name of it, but it's an organization, a not-for-profit that began in Brooklyn, but now which covers Manhattan, that provides bail of $2,000 or under to people who are in jail awaiting trial and who don't have the financial resources to pay bail. So people come in with different issues confronting the city as a whole, and then each community board chair presents the issues that are currently confronting its various community boards. And that's how I've learned what's important to CB11, which is just to the north of us, and CB6, just to the south of us, might not be the same issues that confront us. Similarly, east and west. There are issues that cross all kinds of community board lines, such as the question of overdevelopment and affordable housing, but other issues manifest themselves in different ways. So from that, I've learned a lot about New York as well. I am very, very committed to this city. I think New York is really unique in the country for what it represents to people and for what it could be and what it has been.
Are you enjoying the job?
I am. I am fascinated by it. And there are days where I do nothing else but respond to emails, write letters, and make phone calls. But it never feels like wasted time. It's frustrating in that we can't make as much progress as quickly as I would like, as the committee chairs, as the committee members, and as the public would like. But I have just been really enjoying it. I know my husband is probably a little bit sad because I go to so many meetings at night, but it is just, they are tremendously fascinating and of endless interest to me, and challenge. I do like to be challenged.
And I've also seen how you have taken young people on the board and sort of engaged them in what the board does as well. And I think that's great too.
They bring a freshness. Everyone brings something different, a different perspective based on age or experience, and it's vital to the community board. So I'm glad that the borough president and the city council members have been able to appoint people who are both older and more experienced and younger with a fresh, different, new perspective, and that everyone could continue to work together. So I'm so happy and really fortunate to be doing this. Thank you.
Thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for being on the show.
It's my great pleasure. Thank you for hosting me.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to this episode of CB8 Speaks. I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I have. I hope you've enjoyed getting to know Alida Camp even better. And I hope you'll tune in again to future episodes. Thanks again for watching.